Welcome to the IMCP Profiles in Partnership, the podcast that showcases how Microsoft partners and IMCP members boost their business by collaborating with other members and partners. I'm your co-host, Anthony Carano, and in each episode, I'll be talking to some of the most innovative and successful partners in the Microsoft ecosystem. The International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners, otherwise known as IAMCP, is a community of Microsoft partners who help each other grow and thrive. Members can find and connect with other partners locally and globally and access exclusive resources and opportunities. Whether you're looking for new customers, new markets, or new solutions, IMCP can help you achieve your goals. We'll hear their stories, learn from their experiences, and discover the best practices and strategies they use to increase customer loyalty and grow revenues. Whether you're a new partner or an established one, you'll find valuable insights and inspiration in this podcast. We hope you enjoy this podcast and find it useful and inspiring. If you do, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media and connect with us on our website, www.profilesinpartnership.com, where you can find more information, resources, and opportunities to partner for success. Thank you for listening, and now let's get started with today's episode. Before we dive into our interview, let me ask you a question. How do you leverage your membership in the IMCP to find and develop partner relationships that will help you grow your business? Finding the right partner can be challenging, but it can also be rewarding. In fact, according to a recent study by IDC, Microsoft partners who collaborate with other partners generate almost 2.5 times more revenue growth than those who don't. That's a huge difference, and it shows the power of partnering. So, how do you nurture and build trust relationships that will help you grow your business? And how do you ensure success for your customer and your respective businesses? These are some of the questions we'll explore in this podcast with the help of our guests, recent Global and America's P2P Award winners, who are also experts in partnering. They'll share their stories, challenges, and successes, and give you practical tips and advice on how to partner for success. Are you ready to join us on this journey? Then stay tuned because we have a great show for you today. Our guests are award-winning Microsoft partners, Craig Zimmerman, the Chief Operating Officer at Big Cloud Consultants, and Jason Movich, the CEO at Greenlight Cyber. Let's hear what they have to say. Well, I want to welcome Craig and Jason to the podcast today. Really appreciate you guys joining us. So let's start off. Craig, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I live in Asheville, North Carolina, where our company is based. COO of Big Cloud Consultants. And we're a Microsoft 365 partner, as most IAMCP members are. And we are, we specialize in partner-to-partner relationships. And that's kind of how we got here today.
Excellent. And how long have you been with Big Cloud Consultants?
Since the beginning, 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And Jason, how about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Jason Movich here. So yeah, I'm the founder, CEO of Greenlight out here in Southern California, born and raised. Started the company in 2010 as a MSP, back when MSPs were kind of just starting off in the SMB space. Been a Microsoft partner pretty much this whole time, and made a transition to be an MSSP over the last few years. So it's been a great journey, and we love our partnerships. Love being part of this program with IMCP, and I'm excited to talk to you guys today about the successes we've had with Big Cloud.
When did you guys both join IMCP?
I'm going to say 2018.
Yeah, I think it was 2019.
Yeah,
it was about a year before we all ran home.
Let's not talk about that.
Want to congratulate you guys both on winning the IMCP P2P Solution Provider Award. And I know Rudy's going to get into and ask you some questions about that story. Before I do, what are some of the company's areas of specialization?
So we specialize in SharePoint. That is really our bread and butter, right? So we have, and that's where partnering has worked really well for us, honestly, because it's such a specialty. We've had other companies who, where it's not their specialty, come to us and say, "Hey, we've been working on this. We can't do it. We need help," and we're able to accomplish it in, what they've been working on for weeks, we can accomplish in a couple hours because that's our expertise. So we do other things, Teams phones and things like that, but SharePoint is definitely bread and butter for us.
Yeah, I can attest to that. We work with Big Cloud all the time. Whenever we need anything SharePoint and Teams phones, and anything kind of in that whole ecosystem, and they're absolutely one of our best favorite partners for it. They're really really good at that stuff. And then for us, really cybersecurity, especially for the SMB market, making cybersecurity reasonable for SMBs, and being a Microsoft partner and having come from the MSP world, the talent that we have on the team allows us to bridge a lot of gaps, right? So not only internally do we have that capability of doing a lot of the kind of IT related functions that might be adjacent to cybersecurity, but the partner network that we've built over the years is maybe our most important asset, because partners like a Big Cloud, and we have many others that are just truly outstanding at what they do. No one as good as Big Cloud, of course, but
And that's why we love Jason.
yeah.
Thank you.
but, but yeah, I mean, gosh, our partner network has been a real key to our success here.
And I'll just follow that up by saying at least part of our relationship is if there's something that we don't do, and I'm not sure if Greenlight will do it, I'll reach out to Jason and go, hey, I have this opportunity. Is this something you can help with? And it's those types of partnerships where you have someone to go to first, I think, to at least ask that question, that make a huge difference. I have no problem calling Jason or anyone on his staff and asking, hey, here's the opportunity. Can you help? And we get that back from them all the time.
Well, Rudy, if I can jump in with this one, I want to piggyback. There's what I find fascinating about this story is, I mean, obviously, Big Cloud is based in North Carolina. Greenlight is based in California. Obviously, I know Greenlight started as an MSP, and usually, typically a lot of MSPs will work more regionally. How did you guys connect? Across coast and working with and collaborating with customers.
So it's actually a funny story that Jason and I just realized again a couple of weeks ago, which was we actually met through a third person who we had both been looking for a different partner, and we found someone else. And he actually connected Jason and I and said, hey, it'd be good if you guys met. And the funny thing is, he is now totally out of this business and haven't heard from him in ages. But
Yep.
Jason and I not only struck up a great partnership, what turned out to be a great friendship.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, Craig touched on it. Like, he'll reach out if he's not sure if it's something we do, and then that can lead to, well, you know what? Actually, we don't do that, but we have someone great that does, and that's happened many times as well, right? So it's just having that culture in an organization to be really open to working with other folks and having a circle of folks you trust. The relationships that we have are everything. Right. But the way we met was really in that same spirit of, we're connecting with people, and I'm always very open to connect with people. So when this third party said, hey, you should meet this guy, I jump at it. Right. And you never know. In this case, it worked out beautifully.
And I think we found we work the same way and we treat clients the same way. And what's even funnier to your question, Anthony, is, we're across the country from each other. How did we meet? Our joint client that we won this award for is actually in neither of our states. They're in Georgia. And so, and I think the first time Jason and I met in person was when we went to the client.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Craig and I both, our companies, we have clients all across the country. We have a few. We just got a client in Japan, of all places. But yeah, I mean, especially on the security side, the local kind of regional thing is not something that's important, because the on-site necessity is very rare if we ever need to do that. Now with Teams and Zoom and everything else, there's so many ways to work. And of course, with Craig and his company being in SharePoint, I mean, everything we do is in the cloud now, and so we're not tied to a region like most MSPs are, because of the field service they need to perform.
It's great to hear how you guys met. And, you didn't meet each other till you met at the client. So, in getting started with this story, why don't you tell us a little bit about the client. You don't have to give us a name. Maybe a little bit about the size of the company, the industry, tech implementation, what challenges that we're facing, and how you came about to selecting each other to work on this deal.
Sure. So the clients in Atlanta, they had actually called us a couple of years ago about something that we don't do. They called us for Dynamics, and we found the right Dynamics partner to bring in, and we kept the client, and they've been very happy with the Dynamics end. And they got to the point where we had been talking to them about taking over their licenses and managing that and as their CSP, but their current MSP was just not doing a good job for them. And I think that puts it mildly. I mean, they held them ransom for stuff. It was not a good relationship. And so as they told me more about that, I kept telling them, no, you need to bring in someone else because this is not the way it should be. And when they finally agreed, I had introduced them to Jason probably a year before we actually did something and didn't go anyplace. And then I kept talking to them and finally they said, okay, we're ready to make the change. And so we brought Jason back in because that was part of the relationship we had and how we worked together. And so, and we're very careful, I think, and I want to mention this, not to step on each other's toes. So there's stuff that Jason does that we do. There's stuff like he can manage their licenses like we can. We could do some of the security stuff, but we don't. And it's like, okay, this is our lane. This is your lane. This is why the partnership works because we stay in our lanes for this client. Right. The client probably has 200 seats, maybe 300 seats.
Yeah. And it does fluctuate. It's an interesting business model where they have these seasonal workers. So sometimes a client has, I don't know, 100, 150. Sometimes they have probably 350 or so.
Sometimes they have 30. Off season, they have 30.
Yeah, that's true.
And honestly, part of the way we got to manage their licenses was they had said to us, listen, we need you guys to adjust them. We don't adjust licenses. So we need you guys to provide a report and different people get different reports. And that was part of earning their business. But I think when we got there with Jason, the great news was they needed a lot more stuff than they thought, right? So there was a huge hardware investment. The interesting thing about that was I was there for the meeting where Jason told them, and they were skeptical at first, not about the need, but just about understanding why they need to replace all this hardware and what was going on. And I think both of us being there gave them that security feeling because I had worked with them for a couple of years. And the first thing the manager did was look at me and I went, no, whatever he's telling you is what you need to do. And now I think we both have that relationship with the client.
And they're so much better off. I mean, Craig, there's no overstating how bad things were for them. They had data loss that they had experienced.
Couldn't get their passwords.
They couldn't get passwords.
Wow.
And then when I flew out there and the incumbent IT company wouldn't give the client their passwords, which anyone in IT knows that, like, no matter the situation, you can't do that. It's their property, and that's in a world of hurt. But of course, I fly out there, and it's starting to look like there's nothing I'm gonna be able to do. So I was looking at flights home, but we were able to work things out very diplomatically, well, somewhat, as much as we could. And
for cash. I mean, let's be honest. The old MSP held them up for money.
Yes.
Wow.
Which both of us were so incensed at, just because that's not how we do business.
Yeah.
But I actually served as kind of a mediator for that deal, and helped make that happen so that we could start working on things. And to Craig's point, when we get in there, we start looking at everything, and it is such bad shape, and their equipment's so old. And yeah, it was kind of like, all right, well, we have a couple options. We can run this stuff more into the ground than it already is, but you're going to spend so much every month. You're going to have a lot of problems. Or we can redo things here. We can do it right. And this is a real investment in your business. And it worked out. It worked out. And they're so much better off. They're raving fans of both of us. They love us.
Right.
Nice.
And they're not the easiest client.
No, they're tough. But you know what? They're tough, but they are. I don't want to say tough but fair. They are, but they're
Mhm.
tough with high expectations,
Yeah.
which I think is good. It's good for both our companies because we want to meet their expectations or exceed them. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it actually is good for us.
I like those clients. I like the ones that have high expectations, because that's how we operate here. And I don't, I, I like them a lot more than the clients that don't really care about it, that don't want to talk about it, that don't want to think about it. Those ones are harder because, if our job is to go and help them, and their job is to bury their heads in the sand, how do you even have a conversation? So many of those out there, right, in the SMB space. So yeah, this is a good client.
And
It's
it took
turned
some
into
convincing.
industry.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's no, it took, and I don't mean convincing from the sales side. It took convincing as to, okay, first I need to be comfortable with you, and then
Mm-hmm.
I need to fully understand why this is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
okay, so speaking of partnerships, there's no way I could have flown into Atlanta, and in day 2 or 3 said, "Hey, you guys need to spend 6 digits on equipment." They, there's no way they wouldn't have probably ran me out of that building with a shotgun. But because of the relationship they already had with my partner, with Craig, that made a world of difference. So it's not just the convenience factor of, ooh, we get more opportunities or anything. No, that carried so much weight. And Craig's right. We were both there when I had to tell them, hey, you guys are kind of in for it here. And they looked right at him right when I told them that. So the kind of trust that they have in
Mm-hmm.
Craig and Craig's business, which says a lot about Craig and Big Cloud.
Yeah.
But it's a huge benefit to me because it helped me tremendously. Having this partnership, it allowed me to do my job much more effectively, because then, otherwise, yeah, the client might have been like, okay, no, you just flew in here, now you're telling us we got to spend all this extra money. How convenient. Get the heck out of here, right? But that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't
Mm-hmm.
the case, and it was, I think, very much because of the partnership that Craig and I have.
Well, Jason, I'm glad you bring that up because one of the things, just as I've been listening to this story, that's really fantastic, and I wanted to ask this specifically for Craig, is because there was you mentioned where the client had asked you about like for a Dynamics partner, and then they get stuck, they need help with an MSP. What did you like? How did you develop the trust relationship with the client that they were willing to rely on you for like the different vendors and seek you out really as a trusted advisor to for things outside of your area of expertise?
That is a great question. I think, when they originally came to us, I think what we have found more and more over the years is you say Microsoft partner, and people think you can do everything, right? It doesn't matter to them. Dynamics, SharePoint, it's all part of Microsoft. They don't know. We're in this industry, so we deal with this every day, right? But like Copilot, very exciting for us, not as exciting for the clients, right? They're interested, but it's not like it was for us, right? So I think this is the same thing, right? It's very, it's very, how can we get the client what they need and still keep the rest of their business? Because I think, you don't want to refer it out for everything
Mm-hmm.
and just
Mm-hmm.
turn it over to someone else, because I still want the licensing. The licensing is a big part of this. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I still want that relationship.
Yet you
So
do want to refer it out, because if you don't, they might have to go to market, and now who are they talking to, right? So to protect your own interests in what you have there, you got to have a partner network. You got to know, okay, who's on speed dial, who can help me here, and you just got to have that mindset of having those relationships, and being very open to those, and really cultivating them too. It's not just there for your convenience. I mean, these are relationships that, like anything, kind of require that effort, and are worth it. Uh, you
And
know,
I think that's the thing. We just want to do the best we can for the client, right? We want to make sure that the client has what they need in
Mm-hmm.
the end. And my feeling always is, if it doesn't get us business today, it will in the future. If you do the right thing, they'll be back. And so in the case of Dynamics, and what's really funny as I'm thinking about it is, the third party that introduced Jason and I, he's the one I called on for this project originally, for the dynamics part of it. That was a disaster. And so we wound up finding another company. But the client, after a little while, and it wasn't a big secret. I mean, we said we're bringing in this partner. One of the things that I try and make sure to do is I don't want the client, if they went to the partner directly, to pay less. So whatever I work out with the partner, I try and make it so that, okay, the client is going to pay us slightly less than they may pay you directly. And we all get some kind of piece of that. But in that, we're all making some money, right? And then the client never feels like if they call you directly, they're getting a better deal. So we worked that out with the Dynamics provider. That worked great. And then as time went on and they went from little Dynamics stuff to, okay, now we want to roll out field service. And I said, well, I'll find a partner for that. Mm-hmm. And they were like, that's fine. Because in the end, the client said to me, and he has said this more than once, we want one neck to ring and it's yours. Yeah. But I totally get it. It's like they just want to call one place and go, all right, how do I do this? So even when they onboard new users, they send them to us. There's a piece that we contact Greenlight for, right? We've automated it. So Greenlight gets an email in their ticketing system, whatever they need to do that piece. But then it's all done. The client's just dealing with one person, right? And one company, and whatever they need, it's getting accomplished.
Yeah. So I got a follow-up question here, because both of you have mentioned that partnering is a big component of each other's business. So, and you've mentioned, you build trust relationships with each of your clients, et cetera. So what's your criteria for selecting a partner? And then how do you go about it? Do you discuss, have you ever had it sat down with a partner and discuss the rules of engagement? Because that's always a key part of building a good trust relationship with a partner. Do you do that in your engagements when you're trying to select a partner? What's your process look like?
I mean, I can speak to it first. I don't think I have a SOP for it. I think it does kind of vary, but I think there's a couple things that'll drive that, right? So one is, hey, I need a SharePoint partner. My client needs help with SharePoint. The way I would go about finding that, if I didn't already know Big Cloud, is I would reach out to a couple of folks in that space that I trust, that I know, that I like, and that I trust, right? I'm not going to Google it. I'm not going on any sort of marketplace to look for anybody. I'm going to reach out to the folks I trust. And that trust transfers, not 100% of it, but a great deal of it, right? So if I don't know, if I need help with Dynamics, I might call Craig, who do you have that I can trust for Dynamics for this project? And if Craig says, oh, you got to work with so-and-so, they've been outstanding. Now I trust that person, and then it's like, okay, then we engage, right? Then, at some point, there would be some rules of engagement. But I think a lot of it is, at least for Craig and I, understood, right? Like, Craig brought me into this one opportunity. Craig said, hey, we're doing their licensing. We're doing SharePoint. We're doing their cloud stuff. And we need your help on kind of all these things. And so that's enough for us, right? It's right in our system. It's documented in our system. So my whole team is aware that these are the lanes we're in for this client. And it was Craig's opportunity. So we would defer to him on what he wants us to do. And this happens a lot with our partners, because we get a lot of partners that bring us in, much more than the other way around. And so we always make sure it's very clear, but I don't know that we have a real defined process, because I think each one has its own unique qualities, each relationship.
So how much does IAMCP play in your P2P relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I agree with Jason before about the standard operating procedure, and there is no one for finding a partner, right? There is no one right way. But the thing that I do in addition to calling people I know is I will look at the IAMCP member list to see and look for companies that I need, because my first inclination is the people in the IAMCP operate the same way that we do and have the same code of ethics. and they want to remain there, and they're going to work the same way, right? They're not going to steal our part of the business, and I'm not going to steal their part of the business. And I say this all the time when we work with partners: you can only screw a partner once, right? You can only steal business once. That gets around very quickly. It's not a good reputation. It's not, and that's what we have. And so we just don't do that. I mean, honestly, we have a partner who we did a whole bunch of work for them. We didn't get paid. I'm 90% sure they got paid by the client. And if not, and they didn't bill the client, that's on them, right? But I hate having to go after people for that. But they owe us a chunk of money. The first thing I did was look
I
to
told you
see.
the check's in the mail.
Dated out of state check. That works, Jason.
Yeah. We can just ACH now. Checks get stolen. But no, I think the point is that the first thing I did after that was look in our IAMCP member list to make sure they weren't an IAMCP member, because we got screwed. I don't want to do that. And those aren't the people that I want to be part of the organization that I really enjoy being a part of, because I want to know that the people on the list work the way we do.
So I know there was a phrase. I'm gonna start with you, Jason, because you used the phrase a couple of times, and I got really turned on to this concept early in my business career. You used the phrase "raving fans," right? Or turn them, the client into a raving fan. And so, obviously, you guys shared a little bit about the challenge just the horrific situation that customer was in. And what are some, maybe if you don't want to answer it like the details, you can answer it one of two ways. Either what are some things you specifically took to take that client who was in a really difficult situation, and you mentioned that they were somewhat of a challenge to work with, and turn them into a raving fan. Or if you say, I want to maybe talk more abstract, and what are some general steps and tips that you would give to folks listening, what they can do if they were in a similar situation?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying, in the case of this client, Craig touched on the fact that the prior IT company didn't have a good relationship with them, and they were held hostage. I mean, when it comes to getting their passwords, and there was data loss that occurred that the IT company really, I think, was the cause of, not just out of negligence, but I don't know, but nonetheless, it was horrible, right? And so these people were just beyond frustrated.
And I don't think they knew to what extent, honestly.
Yeah, it was a lot of there was a lot of secrecy around, on that. It was very,
it was bad.
Yeah.
And just for the record, that other MSP was not an IMCP member, right, Craig?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Yep. So the most important thing for me was understanding what the client was going through and understanding what that meant to them. If I don't understand how my client is feeling and what their motivations are, I'm going to be at best mediocre at my job, right? And I've seen this time and time again with service providers where they focus so much on their features and their products and their solutions. And it's like, hey, this is how we do it, and we're going to do it, and trust us, and it's fine. And that's not how we operate. I don't think you have a whole lot of raving fans if it's very one-sided of a relationship. I think what's better is to get to know the clients, to really understand what their experience is, what their motivations are, and what's important to them. And if we can solve for those things and make them feel better about how things are, and just more comfortable with it, and trust us, and all that, and you earn that. And it takes time. They weren't raving fans day one with us, but they gave us the opportunity to earn that trust. And yeah, they love our team, and they love the leadership we have here, because we're very open. We like to, share with them what's going on, but not too much. Just, we know they're very busy, so we cater it to them. We have some clients that want to get a ton of information every month, and they get a bunch of reports. We have some clients that would never want to see that stuff, and it's like pulling teeth to get a meeting, right? And you got to know what's important to each client, and to a degree, you do have to force certain things, because we're in the business of managing and mitigating risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty important we have conversations, but at the same time, some folks really want to talk forever. Some folks want it super short and sweet. Some want an in-person meeting. Some want over Zoom. Some just want a phone call, and some would rather have an email.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
understanding each client and then catering to them, and that's what we do. That's what we focus on here. Is even in our solution delivery, we don't have just some package solution, and we have no two clients the same. We don't have two clients that have the same products or services. Everything we do is very bespoke, and it's very much against the kind of best practices of an MSP, but that's fine because as an MSSP in the world we're in, we need to be able to be very flexible with, but still have our standards and our best practices and the frameworks and all that. But it really is just about listening to the client and really paying attention to be very in tune to what's really, really important to them and making sure you're solving for that.
Mm-hmm. Now I know the client, because you mentioned previously that they were, obviously they were really badly burned by their prior MSP. You're being brought in from Big Cloud, and obviously Big Cloud's recommendation and just the relationship that they have with Craig. But I also know at the same time you had mentioned that they had a lot of doubts about having an MSP from another state. So what are some specific things that you did right out of the gate to help them overcome those doubts of working with somebody who's clear across the country? Or you answer the other way is, what would be just some specific, not actually, I don't want to do a specific tip. I want to say maybe like what's like one thing that somebody who finds himself in a similar situation, what is it like you absolutely have to do right out of the gate to help that customer overcome those doubts?
Well, in this case, the customer being in a different state and
Yeah.
Craig needing us to provide IT services, field service, all of it, and we're not local. So the first thing we did is a lot of due diligence around finding a great partner that's local to that client, that could be on call for us, that could be our hands and feet when we need it. And we did. In fact, we talked to a few, but ultimately we're very selective, and we found a great team down there that we work with, have such a great relationship with them now. They brought us into a bunch of clients now that we're doing the cybersecurity for them. So it's turned into a great partnership. But they're just doing hands and feet over there, which they've done a lot of, especially in the early on part where we had a lot of infrastructure refresh. But that was a concern not only for the client, it was a concern for Craig and I. It's like, how are we going to be able to handle field service if I'm not going to put a tech on a plane every time someone's printer doesn't work, right? So yeah, that was a absolute requirement that we got in front of right away.
Nice. I know, aside from the initial, were there any other challenges during the engagement? And if so, maybe what were they and how did you guys work together to overcome
So you don't know the client, so there's always a challenge during the engagement. Really, I mean, we just call them clients. And
Uh-huh.
honestly, sometimes I like the challenging clients a little better because, they ask questions that make you think about something, or it sends you in a different direction that's out of my normal comfort zone, right? And I wind up researching something else.
I like the easy clients, but hey, you want the tough ones.
I didn't say a lot of them because somehow nobody else in our company wants to deal with them. They all come back to me. What's nice though is, in this case especially, having Jason to be able to go, were you on this thread? Did you see this? What did you think of this? So
yeah, we commiserate a lot. It's great.
yeah. But it comes back to trust. It comes back to trust with the client. If the client trusts you, which took a long time for us, it wasn't a right away thing, right? They actually got referred to us from someone else who only did SharePoint, right? And didn't do, and they got this lead. And so that's how we got this client, right? And so it's really about how do you develop that relationship with the client? And like Jason said, you have to know your audience, right? And so every client's different. And so like on the SharePoint side, when we do a project or we do a build out and we talk to a client, today, and we finish something and then we talk to a different client tomorrow, we explain to them, no, we're still going to do discovery because you know what we built yesterday is not going to be for you. It's not going to meet your needs because your company is different and how you work is different. And so we need to understand that going in. And I think if you do, and you have that ongoing reputation with the client, then it develops over time. Right. What was the question, Anthony?
That's fine. Rudy, you mentioned you got a question.
No, I'm tired of talking to these guys, but no, no, I think it's great. Partnering can be very challenging at times, and it's great when you build those relationships. So when you partner together on any opportunity, and by the way, those are service opportunities. When you have a difficult client, those are service opportunities.
Yes.
So the challenge can be, one of the things that we all want to do, and having run these businesses before, is, does our service increase the customer satisfaction, and does it help them increase their revenue? What are the metrics that you guys look at in servicing during a partnering opportunity?
It depends on the client, right? So I think in the case of this client, I don't know that we were going to enhance their revenue so much as stop it from going away if their technology didn't work, right? Or if they got hacked, or any number of things. So in this particular case,
yeah, to a degree, I think they're more efficient now in a lot of
I
ways.
would agree with that.
Right?
Yep.
But they're
And we've
also
looked at
way more resilient, more stable. Yeah, no downtime. Yeah.
And we've looked at their other systems, and we know like there are a couple other systems that need to be replaced, and we're discussing it with them. They're getting there, right? But it takes time.
Well, Jason, you brought up a good point on customer efficiency, because that also, to Craig's point, that does drive revenue. The more efficient you are, and I know I used to teach my teams, it's like, hey, let's measure this if we can, because it's one of those great things when you're having a quarterly business review or something like that with a client that you can go over. And as an MSP, you talked about the reports and stuff, and they don't want to hear that, a lot of the things, but it's always nice to review the gains that you've had, in satisfaction, in revenue, et cetera. As I made a joke about it with a client yesterday. Clients just want to review the bills with you, right? And there's other things that you need to review. And what are the things that we look at? But customer satisfaction, revenue, there's several metrics, and our teams can always bring us that information, which is good to review with a client. And so in partnering, those are the kinds of things to continue to have discussions, because you're always looking for ways to make your own organization better, make the client's organization better, and the partner organizations. You got to have these discussions. So do you guys ever get into some of those things to really discuss, when you're talking about partnering opportunities?
To be honest, I don't think we have, because we look at it as, in the end, is the client happy with what are their needs being met, right? So like the client we partnered on, a perfect example. They don't want to talk metrics. They don't care. They don't want to spend any extra time talking to either of us, and they like us, but they don't want to spend any extra time talking to us, because my conversation always ends with them telling us how great we are. And so, that part's a good part of the conversation to have, right? But they don't want to spend any more time with us than they need to. So yes, it's the bills and what they look like. And then it's, here are our upcoming projects for the off season. And that's pretty much it. So we haven't discussed those metrics because the client, in this case, that particular client, doesn't care.
We do have some clients. In cyber risk, quantifying risk is important, and some of our clients want us to help them at that level. Some of them not at all. We just get in and try to protect them, and that's it. But those that do, we have systems in place that help us try to quantify the financial, what the financial losses would be and everything. And then of course that starts getting into conversations around cyber insurance and transference of risk there and all of that, right? So there's a lot of those conversations happening, more to do with the risk management aspect. And because we have systems in place to help us quantify those risks, it makes it doable. But when it's so nebulous, like IT uptime and even that, like there are ways to quantify, but a lot of it is also very like hypothetical, right? Unless you have a lot of data points to really go off of and be pragmatic about your quantification, it would be very it would come across maybe nebulous, and then how much credence are the numbers really going to have, or is a customer really going to put much weight on that? And so it does vary, but I think there are ways to do it. And when you can quantify any value to a client, if there's a way, Rudy, you mentioned, if we can, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Then we should. Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's something that, I mean, we could probably do even better job of. I think we all could, right? Anyone listening would probably think the same. I think that's a huge takeaway here. Is a great point to make, Rudy.
Yeah, and to your point, Jason, I think you do. We all manage our conversations based on the client's behavior, right? And that's what you do, because you'll have clients that want to know everything, and then you have clients that go, like Craig mentioned, "Oh, let's get out of here, guys."
Know your audience. That's always my line: is know your audience.
But since both of you have talked a lot about partnering, what advice do you have for companies who are looking at partnering? Because that's one of the things, Microsoft pushes. We all can't be experts at everything that we used to do back in the 1990s, right? We were all experts at everything in the 1990s. And then the world changed, right? The cloud came along and everything changed. And so what advice do you have for people who are looking at partnering, who know they may need to partner? Because you've brought up some very good points, and I think we need to discuss those. What advice would you have for people who are looking at possibly partnering?
My advice would be, if you're, say, the business owner and you're an introvert and you don't really like to get out there and talk to people and go to these events where you're going to meet other partners or anything, hire someone that you trust that is good at that stuff. Because, I mean, for me, I love doing that stuff. I love going to IMCP meetings and shaking hands and all that and getting to know people. It's one of my best parts of the month, right? It's to go and do that. I love connecting with Craig and other partners that I have, and but not everyone does, and I've seen that a lot. I have good friends, colleagues of mine that have their own shops, their own MSPs, or they're just independent consultants, and they're busy working all day, and then they go home and that's it, and they don't really, I'm like one of three people they'll talk to, and yeah.
And I do think it's gotten worse since everyone works from home a lot more. And I mean, not that I'm not for that. I love working from home, and but I think that the communication has changed from not being in a group setting periodically.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's also that personality type, right? Not everyone's wired to be a networker. And, you don't need to be salesy. That's not what it's about. It's about just wanting to meet people and get to know them and get to know what they do. I mean, if you're in the back of an Uber, are you talking to the Uber driver and getting to know who they are, or are you on your phone and not saying a word the whole time? That tells you who you are, right? I'm the guy that's talking to the Uber driver, and I would want someone on my team to be that guy too. If they're going to be out there networking.
That's a good California answer. New Yorkers don't get in the car and talk to the driver. Sorry.
Get in a stranger's car and then talk to him. That's the world we live in now.
Well, I think both of you have demonstrated the value of partnering, and that's one of the things to really discuss with people is the value that you bring to the table, and it's a great thing when you do build these relationships like you guys have built. I think that's really good, because that brings value to your individual companies and value to your customers as well.
And I think it goes to, we don't sell any products or services. that we wouldn't use or don't use. I think the same holds true for partnering, right? We don't, if I wouldn't use Jason's company for us, if I wouldn't trust him for us, then I wouldn't say to a client, these are the guys, right? It's like we have another opportunity going on in New York. I know exactly the partner to call in New York. I already told our client because we're not going to manage his firewall because it's not what we do, right? And he's like, well, can't you just, nope, because I don't want to be the guy when your internet doesn't work, right? And you need a partner in New York where you are. And I have a partner to bring in who will do exactly that for him.
Anthony, I'll turn it back to you.
First of all, thank you. I mean, the story was fantastic. You both got extensive, amount of, of experience, like with partnering. Your swim lanes. So just doing a lot of, good things, really right. Or at least, if it's in Craig's case, it sounds like you're doing it right, Craig?
Thanks, I think.
Perception is everything, isn't it?
That's it. And I'm just messing with you, Craig. I know I'm going to probably find a way to I'll pay for it here a little later. But as executives, in your companies, what did you both learn that enabled your respective organizations to improve from this particular experience?
Good question. I think that, so originally, I don't know that I was going to meet Jason in Atlanta because I had been in New York, but I decided it was good to go to meet Jason and see our client. Being on that trip was fantastic. I mean, not only did Jason and I get to spend some one-on-one time together and play credit card roulette, whole other story. But we did, we met with the client, and I think that honestly, and not, I mean, I don't want to take credit for this, but I think that my being there because the client had so much trust in me, which, like I said, took a long time to build, but I think my being there made it easier for Jason to close the business and for the client to really understand what they need. Right. So I think that was super important. So I definitely learned the on-site visit, well worth it.
Face to face is so important. It makes a world of difference. And if there's, I would say that's a big one, right? I mean, I don't go to clients very often. I mean, honestly, that we have clients in my company I've never talked to ever. I have other people that have sold them on what we sell, and then they serve them, and so I haven't even met all our clients. For me to fly out to a client and all that, because Craig introduced me, and then I talked to them, and I recognized like there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot that they're going to need to really get to know me and trust me in order to trust my company. This is only going to work if I get out there and spend some time there, which is what I did. And then for Craig to come down and just get that face-to-face time. If there is one thing, it's that. We wouldn't have gotten the client had I not flown out there and we tried to do things remotely, which we could have done. We wouldn't have gotten that client, and they wouldn't be happy. Even if we did, they wouldn't be happy. And being there, being face-to-face, having Craig there, if there's one takeaway, it would be that. It does make a world of difference.
And I think it comes back again to know your audience, right? Because I didn't say to Jason when we started this, I think you need to come here, or I'll meet you there. It was his decision. He saw where this was going, and he said, I think I need to make a trip, which made perfect sense, right? So I think we both had a learning experience from that. And it comes back to the other thing of know your audience, know who you're talking to. Because with other clients, not a problem. Like the client in New York we were just discussing, when I say to him, this is the person I want to bring, not a problem. He doesn't care. But in this case, it would have made all the difference in the world. And if they didn't personally like Jason, this particular client, if he didn't relate to Jason, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Thanks, guys. That's really good. So, last question. I know at the beginning, we were talking a little bit in pre-show about you guys are doing some cool and interesting things, in your companies. You've been holding out for about 45 minutes now. Let's hear it. What are some cool and interesting things you guys are doing?
Go ahead, Jason.
I mean, it's funny. I've had the company for about 15 years, and I feel like we're in startup mode again in a lot of ways. I mean, we're just busier than ever. We're growing pretty quickly now, and it's all because of the transition that we've been making into managed security services, right? And what's really cool, I think, is the opportunity finally to not only partner with MSPs that we've been able to partner with certain things, or I'll use the term MSP loosely because, like Big Cloud maybe is or is not an MSP, but they do elements of that with SharePoint and all that. So now we actually have MSP partners that have come to us, so that we've talked to. We've had some relationships with different, ones. I'm good friends with many founders of different, smaller MSPs. But now we actually have MSPs that are bringing us into their clients, which we were an MSP. Like that would have never happened, right? Like that would. And so now I'm getting to work with these folks that I really like, that I'm good friends with, and they're bringing us in to help them with the security, and they're happy. The clients are happy. It's just turning into some really great, win-win sort of situations. But that's kind of the coolest thing, I think, is being able to now. I've been in the MSP space for 15 years, been in IT for 25, and just getting to now be partnering with the IT folks out there that are recognizing that cybersecurity is a beast, and to be great at IT and security is a tall order. And unless you're a pretty large company, you're going to struggle. You're going to
And
be.
they're not good at it either. Large companies aren't good at it either.
Yeah, there's a lot that are really, really just not cutting it out there. And so instead of trying to just throw products at the problem, which most MSPs are doing, the ones that are partnering with us, we love it, and it's working out great for them because we look at risk from a risk-based approach rather than a product-based approach. So it makes a world of difference when we're going to have the conversations with the clients, as well as curate the appropriate solutions for each client.
I would say for us, our focus is definitely still SharePoint and Azure. We're doing a bunch of AVD work too, which is great because I think clients are finally starting to see the value of AVD. And so that's great. But I think that, again, it comes back to partnering for us and making sure the clients get what they need. Because for us, a lot of times things will start out as SharePoint projects. That's how people find us, or that's what we get referred for. And then depending on what it is, after that first project, they're like, oh, great, you can be our CSP. And now you can do this for us. And now, so, it always comes down to, hey, prove yourself. And then we'll take a further leap with you.
Excellent. And how can people find out more information about you?
So for me, that's simple. I'm Craig at bigcloudconsultants.com. And phone number is 828-348-1515. And our website, bigcloudconsultants.com.
Yeah, you can't find me. I'm out there. So
really?
luck.
I just did a Google search. You should see what comes up.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would love to hear from anyone. My email is jason at greenlight-is.com. And yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. My last name, Makevich, pretty unique. So not too hard to find me out there.
And we'll have the web addresses and your LinkedIn profile links in the show notes for people who want to find out just more information about Big Cloud Consultants and Greenlight. Really appreciate you guys. This was fun. This was very, very informative. And you guys, once again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
Well, that was fun. I really appreciate Jason and Craig for being on with us today. I learned a lot, took away several really key practical things. Rudy, what were some things that you took away from the episode today?
Well, I thought it was a great episode, and some of the things that I learned from both these gentlemen and that they exhibited was that as a member of IAMCP, you can meet you can meet partners through meetings either live or online, and through that through networking with other partners, you can learn to build trust relationships with each other, and that'll help you in determining who are the partners that you want to work with. So when a client brings you an opportunity, then you have the sources that you can go to build that you trust, and then introduce them to the client and build a bigger, deeper trust relationship with the client. So I think that's very important. And they taught us that, again, it can happen at the local level, it can happen at the regional or global level.
Yeah, one of the things I appreciated too, what Craig was saying, on that note, is he mentioned about like with IMCP as his trust network, and the phrase he said, look, that I know when I talk to a fellow IMCP member, they're going to work the same way, have that code of ethics that we have. I thought that was a great way to phrase that. What have you found just in your experience, in IMCP for many years? I mean, what have you found like when working with IMCP members versus not?
Well, that trust relationship is real important. I've had great success building lots of great networking relationships throughout the years, and they still exist today, even though I'm no longer doing IT services. But the one thing was, uh, I remember when we were starting the IAMCP, we worked hard on that code of ethics. We worked very, very hard on that code of ethics, and that's what I still live by, because that's how I ran my companies. You have to be accountable. You have to operate with high integrity, and more importantly, you have to be able to communicate what you want and what you want done. And that's the one thing I've learned from all the partnering that we do at IAMCP. And over the years, we've built the resources and the courses to teach people that this is the best way to build those partnering relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was another point that was brought up a few times that really resonated with me when they kept using the phrase creating a raving fan. And especially like in this situation, I mean, it was a really difficult situation this customer was in, between being held hostage, with their billing, data loss, holding up passwords, I mean, what a mess. But how they came in, and when he outlined like the steps that they took to take, a challenging customer who's in a really bad situation, right? So you got kind of like this compounding, and how then they created a raving fan out of them, and they talked about how it's important, number one, to understand how the client's feeling, try and see from their point of view, gain ultimately to understand what's important to them. Number three said, do the things you need to do to make them kind of feel better, solve their problem, alleviate that pain, right away. And then number four, continue to earn their trust. I thought that was fantastic. And, to piggyback on both what they were saying, and just even as you mentioned here a little bit earlier, is if the client trusts you, they're going to keep coming back. And the note I wrote down is that, a good customer experience, right, is the best form of marketing.
Exactly. Okay, so I want to thank all of you for joining us on this episode of IMCP Profiles in Partnership, powered by Dunamis Marketing. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and find it useful and inspiring. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media and connect with us on our website at IAMCP.org, where you can find more information, resources, and opportunities to partner for success. One of the best ways to partner for success is to join the IAMCP, a community of Microsoft partners who help each other grow and thrive. IAMCP members can find and connect with other partners locally and even globally to access exclusive resources and opportunities. Whether you're looking for new customers, new markets, or new solutions, IAMCP can help you achieve your goals. To learn more, visit the IAMCP website at IAMCP.org.